Hello, everybody. It is once again Tuesday. It is power session time. Very excited to be with you today. We're talking about obstacles. Lots of conversation about this over the years. Lots of people with lots of great quotable quotes around things that get in the way and our obstacles and our challenges and our trials. And I want to break some things down for you today in terms of how to look at these differently. A lot of us have this overarching idea of how to approach things that get in our way, but we're going to want to understand our basic instincts as a human being with how our brains work to be able to take advantage of these situations. We want to understand our biology. That's really what personal development is, right? It's not a philosophical game. Okay, our philosophies don't create our dreams. It is our actions. It is the way that our brain actually functions. That's why we bring math and science and objectivity to the foundation of everything that we do here at Habit Finder, so that we can take the philosophical, we can take the intuitive, and we can provide the guidelines that can allow it to be more effective based on the way you think, based on what's going on with you. Just because you've got similar symptoms as somebody else doesn't mean the doctor is going to prescribe you the same thing, because they want to check what's unique about what you're experiencing and how you're experiencing it and everything else. That's what we do here at Habit Finder. We want to get specific about the way your thought processes work, the way you're experiencing things. Like, I've had a phenomenal conversation over the last couple of weeks with someone who is harnessing a vision board to the max, and it's just awesome. I've also had some conversations over the last couple of weeks with people who are trying to use vision boards, and it's totally destroying their life. It all depends on how you think. It all depends on what's going on in your world. That's what we do here in the power sessions. We want to give you an opportunity to grab onto a bite-sized piece of what we teach to hopefully allow you to calibrate and shift what you do, how you do it, why you do it, just a little bit more to be able to create that much more, become that much more, to be able to be successful. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. One of these days, the system is going to fail, and my camera is going to kick back on in the middle of that intro, and you guys are going to see how goofy I'm being and ridiculous I'm being in the back scenes. Anyway, I digress. Welcome to the Power Session. My name is Paul Blanchard, president of Habit Finder. Excited to be back with you again here today to be talking to you about the way your brain works, because success really comes down to one simple thing. If your thinking patterns, your conscious and unconscious thinking patterns, are more aligned to what you want to physically create, then you will be able to create it. You will be able to achieve your goals. You'll be able to create your dreams. You'll be able to find the right opportunities to fund those dreams. It all comes down to the way we think. One of my favorite things to do is to disrupt patterns. I've said many times, I don't care if you think like me. In fact, I'd prefer that you don't. I would just like to keep you from thinking the way you are, because we get into worn-in ruts and patterns. Our brain is designed to recognize patterns, and primarily driven by patterns from our past. Based on what we already have experienced, we project what might be possible in the future catastrophically, fantastically, practically, whatever it might be. And it is only in the disruption, it is only in the shaking of that snow globe, okay, the rattling of that cage, that isn't always super pleasant. We want to do it in small doses. We want to do it intentionally so as to not hurt ourselves. But it's in that disruption that we're able to discover things. We're able to find new meaning, new interpretations, and find new tools to then try and sustain as much of the expansion that disruption has created for us before we settle back into our old patterns. We're going to want to make sure we've given the best chance possible for a few of those to adapt. So today, we want to talk about obstacles. Okay, there's a lot of conversation, especially from the Church of Optimism, about obstacles and about how we should look at them, and the cup is half full, and obstacles are the way, and all these things. These are all fabulous perspectives. These are all really positive ways to look at obstacles. The challenge, though, is many of us have been socially and philosophically taught to use positivity to blur the lines. Positivity to just change it into a bland, abstract idea to try and numb the more acute pain we might be experiencing in our lives. If I can just think that I'm so much happier about my life, then I don't have to actually do anything to change it. But at the same time, I wouldn't recommend that you sit there and dwell on all the things that are wrong with it. It is an interesting dance to be able to both consider the emptiness in the cup and the fullness in the cup to maximize the experience of the cup. In this case, you are the cup, your life. We want to consider the value of both. There's so much value in the positive experiences. There's so much value in what we might call the negative experiences. We're going to want to look at them with the same productive energy. And that is curiosity. It is so important that before we're able to tackle any obstacle in our life, that we approach it with tremendous curiosity. Now, many of us this year have experienced a lot of obstacles. A lot of things have not gone according to plan in 2020. Now, aside from the massive amounts of empathy and sensitivity I've got for people who have lost loved ones, people who have lost jobs, people who have gone through really difficult circumstances, aside from that acute pain, overall, what a wonderful year. Like wonderful, full of wonder. The opportunity to have so much disrupted. In a lot of cases, admittedly, probably too much for most. We spent a little bit too long, probably if we want to go on economic scales from about 2008, 2009 to now, a little bit too long getting a little bit too comfortable again, a little bit too undisrupted, uninterrupted in our patterns, in our comfort zones. And man, it came with a brute force in 2020 to let us know that things we haven't been addressing or things we thought we could get away with in life, we really can't. I've had multiple people just in the last couple of weeks ask, just catching up with me, how has Habit Finder been in 2020? How's business? And as I've given the same answer over and over again, I find it really interesting. We've been busier than ever. We stopped at first in March to kind of go, okay, what's going on? For a very particular reason. The reason we stopped there was very similar to what happened in 2007. Now, 2008, we know the economy had some major challenges, but in 2007, we put a timeout on a lot of our business and decided to go back into our content, go back into where we were at, and go deeper. There was this deep sense that we needed to be prepared for something that we weren't ready for. And that felt like some major obstacles. That felt like some major challenges. And there was probably a little bit of kicking and screaming here overall, but as a business over the last 20 years, helping hundreds of thousands of people, we've learned to trust our intuitive impressions, our creative solutions, our inspired ideas. And so as a company, we decided to trust that there was some trench work that needed to be done. And we did that. And then 2008 happened in the middle of it. And it wasn't easy. It was not easy. There may have been other things that we could have logistically or financially been more prepared for. However, coming out the other end, we were so ahead of the curve for what our clientele needed, for what was required to heal, what was required to be able to get back into creation. Intentional creation is what came out of that. And the principles that have followed that are now today honed into the process that is the Habit Finder and is the process of Habit Finder coaching. So it could have been looked at as something, as an obstacle that we needed to just grit and get through. We just needed to survive, which is the instinctual response for us as human beings, is to survive the onslaught, is to fight or flight and clench and not give in. You know, we lower our senses and just try to tolerate, just try to survive, just try to get through. That's the instinctual response to opposition, to obstacles, to things that don't line up with our plan, that are created as expectations in what we do. And again, we've talked about expectations many times. They are concrete conditions for happiness. There are a lot of us who went into 2020 with some interesting concrete conditions for happiness, And man, did the wrecking ball just come smashing through. But the reason I call this wonderful is because it gave us an opportunity to be exposed, which is not something that a lot of people are really comfortable with, except those that have been and have capitalized on the benefits and the gifts that come from that exposure. And obstacles in our life are the opportunity to get appropriate and consistent doses of lessons and laboratories that we're going to want to learn to be more intentional in, so that we can actually find fulfillment in what we're looking to create. See, as human beings, we naturally evaluate our lives externally, but we'll call it the universe requires us to be aligned internally. That's how the universe works. It goes from the inside out. When the inside, when the alignment is taken care of, the outcomes become natural. When we force the outcomes at the violation of what's internal, we can't reconcile that. Mathematically, you cannot use an external force to overpower an internal value. The internal is required. But we shouldn't simply focus on the internal at the expense of the external. We use the external as a reference point to be able to learn what we need to learn internally. And obstacles do just that. Okay? An obstacle, broken down, the first part of the word ob is in front of, okay? And sta is firm, to stand. So an obstacle is something that can allow us to, if we approach it the way I want to talk about today, to be able to stand more firm, to be able to reevaluate what we are standing on and why we are standing there. That is the true value of an obstacle. So as we do this, I want to give you an opportunity to consider the value of obstacles deeper than just they help me, they make me stronger. Most of us understand that obstacles are necessary. We understand that we experience loss so that we can more powerfully experience love and all kinds of juxtaposed dynamics like that in life. But I want to give you two things to focus on specifically to allow obstacles to have a bigger benefit in your life. And none of them are to overcome the obstacle. In fact, we can violate the internal lesson being required of us if our focus is to overcome an obstacle. With that said, okay, I want to be clear here. I want to be really sensitive to the fact that there are obstacles that some of you, the best you can do is overcome them. And that is admirable and that is powerful. That is far better than surrendering to it and giving up. So we're not talking about bad and good here. We're talking about good and better. So good is the determination, the persistence, the grit to overcome them. Because if you can't do that, we'll just shy in the face of them. We'll avoid them. One of my favorite things that I've been studying recently is the fact that life success is not about what you're pursuing. Success has way more to do with what you refuse to avoid. Say that again, because it's so critical. That's all you take away from today. Boom, okay? We're talking about success is not about what you are pursuing. Success is about what you refuse to avoid. And obstacles play right into that. But again, to overcome, as you already noticed, I'm a big fan of words. To overcome means to overwhelm or render helpless. To overcome something means to overwhelm it or render it helpless, to conquer it, to beat it, to get it to submit. Well, if the obstacle is looked as an external hindrance, if it's looked at as something that's in our way, and we need to get around it, we need to get over it, we need to get under it, we need to get through it, we're missing some of the deeper lessons of obstacles. We're going to want to go into it with our eyes wide open. And here's why. Obstacles provide two things, two primary purposes for obstacles to help you start looking at them differently. Number one is obstacles are lessons. They are lessons. They are lessons on how to serve better. When you are experiencing obstacles, one of the most powerful questions you could ask is, who am I being prepared to serve and how? Who am I being prepared to serve and how? There is something the universe wants you in tune with or sensitive to or aware of or refreshed on to be able to make an impact on someone or something that is likely going to come into your life that you're going to want to be prepared for. So suddenly the obstacle doesn't become an hindrance. The obstacle becomes a classroom. What an interesting way to look at it. Or a laboratory to go into and experiment and try to understand, especially when you've seen this obstacle before. It just had slightly different wrapping paper. How many of us have been trading out obstacle for obstacle for obstacle, overcome and conquered, but then it regains its forces and comes back and retaliates, but looks a little bit different, but at its core, it's the same obstacle. Anyone experienced a life like that? Okay, I believe it's called feeling like you're starting back at square one, kind of going through those cycles. Well, what an opportunity to shift to, number one, look at obstacles not as something to overcome, not something to overwhelm, because that's usually why they overwhelm us, not something to render helpless, because then they can't help us. That's why I'm saying don't overcome obstacles. Go into them and learn. Classroom, laboratory, to be curious, not to get distracted, not to get diverted. Okay? The obstacle is in your way. Own it. Embrace it. Experience it. It may not always be pleasant. In many cases, it won't be. Why? Because of number two. The number two thing that an obstacle does is it provides questions. Number one, it provides lessons of how to serve better. Number two, it provides questions of why you want to serve better. Number one, lessons on how. Number two, questions on why. One of the biggest unspoken benefits of an obstacle is to allow you to reevaluate your motivation, to reevaluate why you are doing something, because that is an ongoing adapting evolution as a human being. And there's too many of us who started something for one reason and are still trying to keep that alive and constantly resuscitate it when it has naturally evolved into something different. And when we start trying to keep our why on artificial life support, it dies, even though it's still alive. And we miss the opportunity to be able to evolve and to grow. There is few things as important as stepping back and questioning your own ambition. Not questioning like in a prosecution, not questioning with bad intentions, questioning with curiosity. And obstacles do that. You can do the right things for the wrong reasons and never get anywhere in your life. Constantly finding yourself looping back into challenges and problems because we're not learning the lessons that the obstacle is offering up to us, because all we want to do is conquer it and overcome it and power through it. We want to learn from it. We want to find the lessons that it's providing, and we want to find the questions that it's requiring us to ask of ourselves, why we're doing what we're doing. Not because you are completely off track. Obstacles are calibrations. Now, you ignore small calibrations, it's going to result in a bigger need for a calibration, and an even bigger need for a calibration, and eventually the obstacle becomes a big, hard, solid jolt to the body and the mind and the heart. This is another reason to get good at leaning into obstacles. Worked with many companies who believe that obstacles are the way. Not in overcoming. The obstacle is the way. Not I get a gold medal because I beat the obstacle. I conquered it. I overwhelmed it. I rendered it helpless. Why would you want one of your greatest teachers in life to be helpless? Allow us to bring curiosity to our obstacles. Allow us to pay attention to the lessons. And if we see a similar obstacle again, rather than get discouraged, rather than beat ourselves up, why I'm such an idiot, why can't I get over this? No, get excited. You get another opportunity to explore that room, that classroom, that lesson plan, that curriculum, to find out what lesson you missed that is going to improve who you're going to serve next, including yourself for checking in for why you're headed that direction in the first place. We've got this software for why we do what we do. We should be updating it constantly. And obstacles are not something we should invite, but when they show up, it's a great opportunity for one of those Zach Morris timeout. Okay, let's make sure I'm in the right mindset today, or this week, or this month, or this year, to go, okay, what could the lessons be? And then go explore. What could the questions be? And then go explore. And it is through the actions of working through the obstacle, working with the obstacle, working in the obstacle, that classroom, that laboratory, that we get some of the greatest wisdom that we could ever receive. And it is wisdom of calibration. So many of us wish we could just flip our lives around 180 degrees. Well, it's interesting. And one of the reasons we focus on how your brain works is you only need to make a couple degree of difference in how you think, and it'll feel like 180 degree difference in the impact and the influence and the success of your life. You want to achieve things externally, and then external things are put in your way, but they're not put in your way to make it harder to get what you want. They're put in your way to teach you the lessons to make it worth it, to allow you to find that fulfillment. Not just, oh yeah, we got up to the top of the mountain. Excellent. Did you notice this ridge? Did you notice this wildlife? Did you breathe in the air intentionally? Did you celebrate along the way? No, I just got up here. Okay. How many people are just trying to force it, are just trying to overcome, to overwhelm, to render helpless some of the greatest teachers you can have in your life? So I would hope that we get the opportunity to not just consider the obstacles as blessings and to put a positive outlook on them. That's to relieve the frustration and the other things that dull our senses and kind of black us out to the inspiration. But let's not just leave it at a positive coat of paint on top of it. Let's then go into the obstacle curious, especially ones that in principle continue to show up. And let's look for the lessons of how to serve better and the questions to figure out why to serve better. One of the most tragic things we'll experience in life is never questioning our own ambitions. Again, not to prosecute them, not to disintegrate them, but to firm them up, to stand firm, as the core etymology of obstacle would dictate. Thanks for being here today. I know there are obstacles in your way as we speak, and I know some of them may be very overwhelming, but it might be because you're trying to overcome them. What if you surrendered to trying to overcome and leaned in? Now, leaning in and surrendering do not mean we stop marching, we go back home, we give up. No, it just means we stop trying to kill the obstacle. We go and meet it and get to know it and learn from it. And before we know it, we're on the other side of it. But we're on the other side of it with invaluable lessons and invaluable questions to be able to serve better, to be able to be more connected to why we're serving better. And more opportunities will come our way. And then if we see that obstacle again, there was a lesson we might have missed. Thank goodness. We get to take the course over again, no charge. That's awesome. Good luck. This is much easier said than done. Or in this case, much easier said than become. To be able to really understand at a deep internal level the value of these obstacles and the, if I could be so bold, the mercies that they provide in teaching you. Just understand that the more we try to ignore and overcome and overwhelm and render helpless, the more merciless the obstacle may become. Let's learn the lessons now. Like imagine not learning to read in elementary school and then getting to high school. Now you've got calculus and chemistry and all these things and learning to read. Let's not skip the obstacles now in the kindergarten and elementary schools of our lives and our opportunities, so that when we get to the advanced stages of our dreams and our opportunities and our careers and whatever they are, that we can continue to calibrate. Okay? The only reason, Carol, I would say that it's no charge is because it's paying you. It's paying you dividends. It's paying you stock and options in your life that are going to pay off far more than any material thing that you could possibly find. Although those who do understand this concept of not overcoming obstacles, but leaning into them, often end up with significant material success that they're able to use intentionally and make this a better place. They get access, not looking to fill holes in their soul with things that are outside of them. Again, mathematically, it just doesn't work that way. I have no less empathy, no less sensitivity to those of you who are hurting right now. Those of you who are in pain, you have a right to be there. I sent a message last night to a dear friend of mine who does more good in my own backyard than anyone that I know that I can imagine. And she had a little bit of a rough day. I just sent her a message and said, you deserve to have dark moments just as much as you deserve to have the light. Here for you if you want to throw any rocks into the darkness. Love you. Everyone was trying to make her feel better, and I don't think it was working. And for any of you in that position, it's okay. You don't have to feel better. The dark place you may be in may be the obstacle you're trying to overcome. I'm not saying surrender and give up. I'm just saying surrender the overcoming and learn. What you're experiencing is likely a signal that when we listen close enough and take just enough action to find that consistency, to activate our purpose, because thinking about it doesn't activate our purpose, only action does. We'll find those lessons, we'll find those questions, and we'll find ourselves on the next chapter of the story, the next leg of the journey, with a higher level of fulfillment and joy now, rather than continuing to wait to bank on that at the finish line. No finish line. Not in this life. So let's have a whole bunch of fun along the way with these lessons and these questions, and really challenging ourselves to take the value of obstacles to another level. Thanks, everybody. Create a great day. We'll see you next time.